Today we are talking about Novo Nordisk, which was once an undisputed king of GLP-1 weight loss drugs. We're also going to examine Palantir and why there is something important that is being announced that investors need to know. Now, Novo Nordisk was the first to bring semaglutide to the market, whether in injectable form as Wegovy or Ozempic, or later as the first to market oral Wegovy pill. Now, in every single subcategory, Novo Nordisk was the pioneer. Yet here we are in 2026 watching the Danish pharma giant slowly watch its leadership position being eaten away by Eli Lilly. Now, on August 4th, 2026, Novo Nordisk reported its second quarter earnings. On the surface, it looked like a solid report, adjusted EPS of 95 cents, beating the 78 cents consensus. Revenue of 12.1 billion, also topping the 10.94 billion estimate. The company also raised its full-year guidance, narrowing the expected decline in adjusted sales and operating profit from 4% to 12% to a range of flat to negative 6%. A triple beat earnings, revenue, and guidance. Now, yet the market reaction was not very lukewarm. The stock did not rally as one might have expected. Investors were not looking at the headline numbers. They are looking at the deeper issues: a weaker pipeline, intensifying competitive pressure, and slowing growth. On the very same day, Eli Lilly reported its earnings. The numbers were stunning: revenue of 23 billion, up 48% year-over-year. Mounjaro sales surged 91% to 9.9 billion. Zepbound sales rose 46% to 4.9 billion. The company raised its full-year revenue guidance to 85 to 87 billion. Now put the two reports side by side and the gap is stark. Novo Nordisk is chasing, Eli Lilly is sprinting. Now look at the Novo Nordisk Q2 report. The worrying numbers beneath the surface, we see a triple beat, but expectations were already low. On a constant currency basis, Novo's adjusted sales grew 7%, and adjusted operating profit rose 11% in Q2. International business grew 10%, while the US business grew 4%. Domestic care sales increased 16%. By any traditional valuation metric, this is not a company in trouble, but the problem is that expectations had already been set incredibly low. In Q1, the company guided for a 4-12% decline in full-year sales. By Q2, that guidance was improved to flat to down 6%, an improvement but a modest one. So more critically, the growth numbers for core products exposed deeper structural issues. Now, the core products are also starting. Look, let's break down Novo's key product performances. Wegovy injectable Q2 sales of DKK 19.48 billion, which is around 3 billion, up only 1% year-over-year. In the US, although volumes continue to grow, sales declined 22% year-over-year due to pricing pressure. And this is a dangerous sign. Volume growth but declining revenue means the company is losing price power. Ozempic Q2 sales of DKK at 1.38 billion. Still the company's largest single product, but growth has clearly decelerated. Oral Wegovy pill launched in the US in January 2026. The oral formulation generated Q2 sales of DKK 3.22 billion, around 500 million, and this slightly missed the DKK 3.27 billion consensus. Although the company holds about 90% of the oral GLP-1 market, the absolute size of that revenue is modest compared to Lilly's rivals. Now, the gross margin pressure, adjusted gross margin fell from 82.7% a year ago to 78.2%, reflecting lower realized prices, currency headwinds, and about DKK 3 billion of one-time manufacturing optimization costs. Now the pipeline, the biggest strategic problem is that if slowing top line growth is the external wound, the pipeline is the internal bleeding. On the Q2 earnings call, investors were less interested in the quarterly numbers than in the R&D progress. Chief Scientific Officer Martin Lange faced a barrage of questions about a series of disappointments: Zeus trial failure, ziltivekimab's Zeus trial failed to reduce major cardiovascular events, hazard ratio was 0.99, and serious infection rates were higher. So this setback effectively killed the company's ambitions in the cardiovascular space. Now, CagriSema, Novo's much hyped next-generation obesity drug, only achieved non-inferiority to tirzepatide, Lilly's core ingredient on weight loss in the Remagine 4 trial, and failed to match it on A1C reduction. So Goldman Sachs subsequently nearly halved its sales forecast for CagriSema. One analyst commented bluntly, CagriSema has disappointed again, and that highlights Novo's biggest strategic problem. The company also recognized a non-recurring, non-cash impairment of DKK 6.3 billion, including DKK 4 billion related to monlunabant. CEO Mike Dostar was forced to promise accelerated R&D and borrowed on acquisitions on the subsequent investor call. But the market was not impressed, so the stock continued to slide after the report. So why isn't the market buying it? Novo Nordisk's problem boils down to one simple fact: in the very market it should dominate, it is losing. And investor concerns center on three areas. First, the competitive gap is widening. Lilly has built a clear lead in injectables, and which, while Novo still dominates the oral segment, the absolute revenue from that segment is far below expectations. Second, the pipeline lacks diversification. Roughly 90% of Novo's business comes from obesity and diabetes. That extreme concentration means another adverse development in GLP-1 pricing pressure, intensifying competition, or technological disruption would be devastating. By contrast, Lilly's obesity diabetes exposure is about 6%, leaving more room for other growth drivers. Third, the patent cliff is looming. As the magnitude patents expire in some markets, e.g. Canada and Brazil, generic competition will emerge. If the pipeline lacks sufficiently stressed successors, that pressure will intensify after 2027. Now, if Novo's report was barely passing, Lilly's was a perfect score. Lilly's Q2 revenue reached 23 billion, up 48% year-over-year. First half revenue totaled 42.07 billion, up 51%. The company raised its full-year revenue guidance to 85 to 87 billion, implying full-year growth of over 30% compared to 2025, 65.2 billion. Adjusted EPS came in at 8.38, up 33% year-over-year, and the company also raised its non-GAAP EPS guidance to 35.5 to 37 for the year. And Lilly's success is almost entirely driven by two products, Mounjaro and Zepbound. Together, these products generated about 14.9 billion in quarterly revenue, already exceeding Novo Nordisk's entire company-wide quarterly revenue. Also, Lilly faces pricing headwinds, and the company noted that while net prices are declining, robust prescription volume growth has more than offset the impact. So this is the critical difference from Novo. Novo's Wegovy injectables saw US sales decline 22% despite volume growth. The volume increase was simply not large enough to overcome price erosion. Now, coming to in July 2026, Novo Nordisk filed a lawsuit against Eli Lilly, alleging that Lilly's advertisements misleading claim that Lilly's drugs are significantly more effective than Novo's. So, from a competitive standpoint, this lawsuit itself sends a signal Novo is resorting to legal tactics to compensate for commercial underperformance. Now, looking at Palantir, a footnote on diversification, we see that Palantir is a company that serves as a perfect case study for understanding the importance of diversification. And recently, it was added to S&P 500 on September 23, 2024. But since then, it has become a core holding for investors seeking exposure to the AI revolution. And following its inclusion, we see the stock experienced a remarkable rally, with the November 2025 hitting all-time high of 207.52, and mid-August it is trading at around 179. However, the inclusion effect is grounded in solid logic. Index tracking funds, passive ETFs, mutual funds, and pension funds, which must buy the stock upon inclusion, creating significant buying pressure that pushes prices higher. However, Palantir also faces immense valuation skepticism, and the company is trading 12-month revenues about 6.2 billion, yet its price-sales ratio stands at 68x compared to S&P 500 average of 3.3x. That means Palantir's price already embeds extremely high volume expectations. From a portfolio diversification perspective, Palantir and Novo Nordisk represents two very different types of risks. Novo Nordisk carries business concentration risk. 90% of revenue comes from a single therapeutic area. Any adverse change in that space could devastate the entire company. Palantir carries valuation risk. Even if the business performs well, stretched multiples means any disappointment could trigger variant correction. So these are different kinds of risk, but both can be mitigated through diversification. So, as of August 13th, 2026, Novo Nordisk trades at around 46.72. The average analyst price target among 14 analysts is 46.89 with a consensus hold rating. Now, Barenberg downgraded Novo from buy to hold on August 12th, cutting its price target from DKK 325 to DKK 305, citing Lilly's dominance in obesity as a limiting factor for Novo's growth. So, looking at Lilly is not without its own risks. At this share price, the valuation is already rich. Some analysts estimate fair value of at around 1,226, implying only 0.5% upside. But the key point is that Lilly's growth story is still in its early innings, so the company has retatritude and other pipeline candidates. The best market remains vastly underpenetrated. The international markets, especially emerging economies, offer enormous runway. So, what are your thoughts about these stocks? And please like, share, and subscribe, and remember to put God first in whatever you do.